right, Matt Steinmetz and Daryl, the Guru Johnson with you. And you know who we got on the line.
Yeah, the man.
Inman, 95.7 The Game, 49ers insider, 49ers beat writer for the San Jose Mercury News. Cam, how are you?
I am so good right now because it is the start of the NFL season tonight and this weekend, and I despise the off season more than anything. So this is awesome. Today is the start of our 6-month-long Christmas, I guess.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. I'm particularly excited about Sunday's game with the Niners. Let me start obviously with Nick Bosa, and you know all the numbers: 122 guaranteed, 170 overall, $50 million signing bonus. I guess they restructured Kittle and Trent Williams. Can you explain to me, the layman, maybe not technically, how's this going to affect them down the line?
Well, that's interesting because we have to see how it's structured because, if they push a lot of his salaries in the future years or whatever, it's a lot of the signing bonus, Matt, it's prorated, right? So say he got a $50 million signing bonus and it's a 5-year deal, then that's $10 million on each cap. On each year's cap goes towards that, plus the salaries and other stuff. So it's spread out like that.
Gotcha.
I mean, obviously, it's a big, huge, massive deal. The salary cap's going up each year. And the Niners have a lot of high-priced guys. There's ways to manipulate it if you want to keep your guys together. I mean, the Rams are kind of an example where they went for it in past years, and they just loaded up with guys on 1-year deals, 1 or 2-year deals. The Niners, they've been pretty smart in how they've structured it, and I mean, I remember covering this team like 20 years ago, and remember like Bill Walsh had turned the keys over to Terry Donahue, and Donahue had to get rid of the roster because they were in, quote, salary cap hell.
Yep.
They're just a lot more prudent in how they budget these things and how you don't necessarily have to push money out, but it's a way to save money on that year's cap. That's why like you do something like with Kittle or Trent Williams because you go, well, these guys are going to be part of our team for another couple of years, so we can move some of their money into future years. They did something like that with Dee Ford a few years ago because it got them into a little bit of trouble because he cost so much and the guy wasn't playing because he had a bad back. So that was not good. But for the most part, these guys know what they're doing salary cap wise. And basically they did it. They were smart enough to reward Bosa the deal that he deserved. He didn't give them any hometown discount, did he? And
right.
I think everybody expected a deal to go along in this facet. And, I mean, I kind of expected it to come down maybe last week, but the fact that it went down yesterday, he's good to go. They're full squad. They're happy. I mean, yesterday's mood around here just all of a sudden did a 180, and everybody's pumped up, and we can take on the world now just because we got Nick Bosa.
No doubt. And I saw Shanahan at the podium. You could just tell the news, Fred Warner was juiced. But let me ask you about what Steiny just mentioned. If you want to bring that up about what it's going to mean in the future. But, Cam, what if I just said, okay, you got a quarterback that's not even you're not paying him anything right now. Wouldn't that be, okay, there goes that. Because that's the positive that the Niners got the situation they have with Brock Purdy if he ends up being who we think he is.
I mean, that's kind of their whole business structure, right? Was 2 years ago they said we need a quarterback that's going to be on a rookie contract so we can pay him pennies compared to what these other quarterbacks are making, right? So that's why they traded up to get a rookie quarterback in Trey Lance, and obviously Lance didn't work out. They lucked into Brock Purdy being the guy. So Brock's not eligible for a contract extension for another 2 seasons.
Wow.
So they're saving a heck of a lot of money that way. So that's why it's like, I'm just curious to see if they use that chunk of their salary cap. That's maybe a lot of that goes towards Bosa, because it's also going towards Trent Williams, going towards Kittle, Warner. Christian McCaffrey's getting a good amount. But these guys that's why they're Super Bowl contenders, because they have all-stars making top-of-the-market money, and they're proving their worth. But come Sunday, people aren't going to really care what they're making. They just got to see them start winning games again.
Cam Inman joining us on 95.7 The Game. He's our 49ers insider. He's also the 49ers writer for the San Jose Mercury News. Let me ask you this. Like, when we talk about the names that kind of come up, Ayuk and Debo, maybe Juszczyk a little, they may be the ones that you got to part with. How long can the Niners go without losing a significant player on their team making good money?
It's funny because you go back to the days when Bill Walsh would cut a guy the year before he started going into a decline, right?
Right.
So we're all assuming these guys are ascending and going to be at elite levels, demand and worthy of that top of the market rate. Doesn't always work out like that. And then there's injuries come into play, and some guys just maybe want to retire. I don't see this as like a window closing because you have a couple older veterans making a lot of money. But they've also rewarded the guys that have earned the second year or the second contracts, guys like Kittle and Warner, and now Bosa.
Right.
So that's what you want as a franchise is kind of keep the carousel going, bring in one or two big free agents a year, maybe trade for one or two studs a year, and then you pay some of these guys. I mean, the business model, that's how you want it done. In the past, it was like, hey, we don't want free agency. We need to build this team with draft picks. Then you realize, the draft is such a crapshoot. So if you're hitting 50% of the guys, cool. Then you can have a franchise. But if you're not hitting those first rounders, it's a double-edged sword because you're not getting the most talented guys that you think are most talented, and then you've wasted a lot of money on the first rounders, which they actually didn't have to do the last couple of years because they traded away those first-round picks for Lance.
Cam, you talk about having big shoes to fill. I'm looking at Steve Wilkes after Robert Saleh and Ryans had success, parlayed that into head coaching jobs. And I know the Niners got Hargrave, but they lost some depth to me on the D-line. We had a caller, Robin. She just called a few minutes ago, and she asked about Wilkes being upstairs calling plays. Can you run us through, or just fans through, what goes through that? And was that a curiosity of yours or no big deal?
Yeah, the curiosity during the preseason finale here, 2 weeks ago when I was at the chow line and Steve Wilkes was putting ketchup and mustard on his hot dog. And I'm like, wow, that's so weird seeing a coach up here in the press buffet. But, I mean, he is a much more, I don't want to say cerebral, but he's pensive, right? He's not an overly emotional guy like a Saleh or D'Amico Ryans were down on the sideline. So, Steve Wilkes has been in the league for 20 years as an assistant. And if he can study how offenses are playing from up top, they're not going to miss energy on the sideline. There is plenty of energy on that sideline to rally guys up. And you're also, obviously, you have a lot of good veteran leaders down there too. So it's not incumbent on a coach to fire guys up down there. I am curious to see how he pulls the strings from upstairs, and just, it's going to be a different vantage point because Robert Saleh and then D'Amico Ryans called the games from upstairs all the time. I believe Fangio did. Didn't Vic Fangio do that about 10 years ago when he was a coordinator? Or maybe it was Roman. I think, anyhow, what matters here now is I think Steve Wilkes knows he has a great defense at his disposal. He's got Nick Bosa lining up on one of the edges right now, so life's pretty good for him.
Cam Inman joining us on 95.7 The Game, covers the San Francisco 49ers for 95.7 The Game and the San Jose Mercury News. What's going on with the kicking game right now and Moody? Yeah,
well, so Moody, Shanahan talked it up yesterday that he thinks he's on track to kick. And I get the sense that Moody is going to make a run at it. He suited up for practice, was limited yesterday. They have this other guy, Matthew Wright, in also. And Matthew Wright's got experience kicking in Pittsburgh a little bit. Matt, the thing that concerns me is the kicking conditions may not be great. And it's always a challenge, I guess, to kick in Pittsburgh anyhow. I don't think it's as big of a challenge as we make it out to be, but to send Moody out there for his NFL debut, and there could be thunderstorms and be rainy and muddy. University of Pittsburgh's hosting the University of Cincinnati the night before, so I'm not expecting ideal kicking conditions for whoever goes out there. And if you're sending a rookie out there with a sore leg, look, guys got to play through things. And when we talked to Jake Moody 2 weeks ago, it was kind of like, he hasn't had a chance to rest that leg, since finishing kicking at Michigan, because he had to go to all-star games, kick at the combine, kick for about 7 teams for pre-draft workouts extensively. And then in camp, you had an extra kicker in Zane Gonzalez, but they sent Moody out a lot during camp practices to kick. So, hopefully like this last week where he was like, we can use the term deloading for him, where he got to rest the leg a little bit and strengthen it up. We're not going to see him probably kick today. I would imagine they do that off the side. But regardless, kicking in Pittsburgh in your NFL debut is a big atmosphere, and all eyes will be on it. I think the Niners are going to put up enough points where it's not going to come down to the kicker.
Yeah, that's where I was going, Cam. The fans want me to ask you about Kittle's availability, if you could touch on that. But also, if you could leave us with your keys to the game this Sunday.
Well, Kittle could be a key. So George Kittle he was practicing yesterday. He's been dealing with a groin issue, I think, for the last month. And if you go back a year ago, he hurt his groin like on the Monday practice before the season opener.
Wow.
And then he did not practice, right, leading up to that game. And he missed the first 2 games last year. Well, yesterday he practiced. He was running around fine. Didn't look like he was like spry and running around, but that's kind of George now. He's year 7 here, best tight end in the league, and just from a blocking and physicality and emotional energy, spirit standpoint. So I think it looks like he should be playing. We'll obviously keep an eye on that the next couple of days. But the keys to the game here, well, now you got Bosa in there to help pass rush and get after Kenny Pickett. And that's good because I was a little weary of how the Niners were going to get after him. I think Javon Hargrave coming up the middle is going to be cool to see because they paid a lot of money for him to be inside with Eric Armstead. If they're running Najee Harris up the middle, then you got Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw getting after him. I like the Niners defense. I just, the Steelers came in. A lot of people are riding the Steelers because they think, hey, this team went undefeated in the preseason. Kenny Pickett had a perfect passer rating. It's preseason. To me, it does not matter. Okay. I think Mike Tomlin is a hell of a coach, and I think Kyle Shanahan respects that. So they know they're going to get, quality atmosphere, quality competition. The Niner offense, here's the bigger key, I think, when it comes to the Niner offense. You got a new right tackle starting in a season opener for the first time in Colton McKivitz. And he's going to be going up against T.J. Watt. And I don't think if you're the coach, I would not expect you're going to have Colton McKivitz one-on-one against T.J. Watt much. You're going to have somebody next to him help chip, send Purdy rolling out to the left because that's the way Purdy likes to go anyways. But then there's so many weapons at his disposal. You got guys healthy. McCaffrey's there. Debo's there. Not many teams got to see that 1-2 punch last year, these offensive catalysts. And then Ayuk is just a number 1 wide receiver now. Kittle's there. And so there's so many offensive weapons, like back in the day when they'd be winning Super Bowls and Dan Deerdorf on Monday Night Football. There'd be so many weapons with these Niners. Well, that's where they're at again. So that's where I see them. I see them winning. And I don't think it's going to be a blowout or easy, but I think they're going to prevail, and I think it's the first step to the Super Bowl.
Cam, have you ever covered a game at this stadium in Pittsburgh?
I've covered probably about 3 or 4 games. The last time the Niners were there was 2015. It was Jim Tom Sula's road debut in his childhood hometown. Grew up across the river in Homestead. That did not go well. Antonio Brown went off for like 190 yards, and the Niners were just outmatched. But I covered a game there. The Raiders played. Bruce Gradkowski was the Raiders quarterback.
Wow.
I think they had 3 go-ahead touchdowns in the fourth quarter alone. It was 19 degrees or something down. I was able to, back in those days, the press had a little bit easier access, so I remember sneaking down onto the field. It's 19 degrees. I'm on the Raiders sideline for those closing minutes as the game's going back and forth. The ink on my pen is freezing, so I'm not able to write in my notepad. The Raiders get a go-ahead touchdown, and one of the Raiders staff members runs up to me to high-five me. I'm like, dude, I don't high-five people. I'm a reporter here. Leave me alone. And it was bedlam, and it was a huge win for the Raiders because they don't win. They haven't won many games over the last 20 years, right? So to do it in Pittsburgh was a really cool environment. But I love it's a great football city, great environment, great fan base. The stadium's cool because it's right on the river, and one thing I love about it is in their concourse, they have a lot of their history up there, and
right.
It's almost like a roaming museum. And I wish the Niners did a little bit more of that. And, the Giants kind of have that at Oracle Park on the club level, but I think every team needs to kind of open up that history for the fan base to kind of get back in touch with the generations before them to understand that. I think Pittsburgh does that really well.
I appreciate that, Cam. Hey,
Thanks, man.
Thanks for the insight, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Okay, hey, thanks, guys. Always great to talk to you. And Goo, welcome back. Bosa's back. Goo's back. I'm
Look
back.
at Cam.
NFL's back.
Cam's the man. Take it easy.
Nice. Cam Inman, 95.7 Game 49ers insider, 49ers reporter, also at the San Jose Mercury.
I got the